Today I'm going to be watching this video. It's called 5 Strange Canadian Objects. So yeah, I'm interested to see what sort of objects are included on this list. Tell me if there's anything that you think is strange from Canada that's not on this list as well. Yeah, let's watch.
Okay, so today we are going to look at a couple of strange Canadian objects. These are things that are normal to me as a Canadian, but might be unusual to you if you are from America or from some non-American country, which I am told exists as well. Number one is this thing. So one increasingly infamous thing about Canadians is that we apparently like to eat a lot of weird flavors of things and put a lot of weird sauces on our food, such as vinegar. This is
Vinegar's
a
amazing.
Canadian vinegar bottle,
Okay.
which you often get at the table at a Canadian sit-down restaurant alongside the standard salt and pepper and ketchup and House of Parliament sauce. A lot of Canadians,
Oh, you get
particularly
HP
older
sauce in
Canadians,
Canada?
really like slathering vinegar all over everything, particularly French fries. My father, for instance, loves to cover everything he eats in vinegar, but I think it's pretty gross. I didn't have any vinegar, so I had to fill this with 7-Up. All right, so for...
Okay, I love vinegar. I guess maybe that comes from the relationship with the UK. In UK, like salt and vinegar is all we put on fries usually, on chips, on crisps as well. But I love vinegar. I never recognised that at first, but yeah, vinegar bottles are extremely common in every cafe, restaurant in the UK. I also never knew you got HP sauce, which we call brown sauce, which is a kind of vinegary base as well, so kind of similar taste. But yeah, tell me, do you like vinegar or not? Brown sauce, HP sauce, have you tried that? Do you like it? Is that common in every part of Canada?
For number two, let us check this out. No, it is not Canadian money, it is Canadian Tire money. Canadian Tire is this very horrible chain of hardware stores in Canada, and I'm not exaggerating. They literally did this big special on Canadian TV a few years ago asking Canadians which store they hated shopping at the most, and the second most hated store was...
Canadian Tire.
Really? Why?
This is because Canadian Tire stores are always a horrible mess and smell weird, and there is never anyone around to help you with anything. If you are from Canada, please post in the comments agreeing with me because you know it's true. But anyway, in order to make shopping at Canadian Tire stores slightly less horrible, in the 1960s they invented this thing called Canadian Tire money. Every time you bought something at Canadian Tire, the cashier would give you back a tiny fraction of the money you spent in the form of Canadian Tire money. I think it's like 1% or something. I bought this spinner at Canadian Tire recently for about $10, and in return, I got 10 cents of Canadian Tire money. The idea is that by giving you Canadian Tire money, which you can spend at the store, they are forcing you to go back to Canadian Tire, which is ordinarily something people would not want to do. But the joke is on them because in reality, in my experience, all Canadians actually do is just stuff their Canadian Tire money in some drawer somewhere. They make it out of this high quality money style paper, so you
Actually looks cool.
Throwing it out, but I mean really, who cares? It's fine, it's not actual money. Now speaking
Actually, I think that's actually a very good idea. Of course, a lot of these retailers, you usually get like some sort of loyalty card or something, but I think that's quite a fun way to do it. It does encourage you to go back. If you save up enough of that money, you just take it back and you can buy things. I don't know of any other retailer that really gives you that physic or gives you anything back like that physically, so it's quite a nice change. And what he said about Canadian Tire, from watching a previous video on Canadian Tire and seeing people's comments, it seems like a very well-respected store. I never seen any real negative comments about it, so it's an interesting observation on his part, the things he said that were negative. So tell me if you agree with that. Do you like Canadian Tire? Is there anything you don't like about it?
Of heartless Canadian chain stores, number 3 is this cozy number. Now, way back in the day, a lot of Canadian land was owned by something called the Hudson's Bay Company, or HBC. The HBC was a British fur trading corporation that the British allowed to own their own land and run their own government in the northern half of North America. In the 1860s, the HBC sold all of their land to the Canadian government, and this is one of the reasons why Canada is such a gigantic country today. But anyway, in addition to trading fur and owning land, the HBC also sold a lot of provisions to the early Canadian pioneers, and the HBC is still actually around to this day, even though now it's just a crummy department store. But they're still selling blankets like these, which are called HBC blankets, which are the same kind of blanket that they sold in the pioneer days. I would say it is still a pretty common sort of blanket for Canadians to own. You can see it has these 4 different colored stripes on it. I guess it's kind of ugly, but it's historic. We actually have a couple of...
Tell me if you own one of them.
In addition to the classic style, I also have this summertime fun edition, and this HBC style beach towel. You can even get an HBC style travel mug or oven mitt. You know, just like the pioneers had. Number 4 is this bottle. This is what they used to call a stubby. Before the 1980s, you could only buy Canadian beer in a bottle like this. At one time, a lot of people would have probably listed these things as one of the biggest differences between America and Canada. But then in the 1980s, all of the Canadian beer companies gave up on the stubby and started selling Canadian beer in American-style bottles like this. They apparently did this for a bunch of reasons, including to make beer more attractive to women. You can make of that what you will. Nowadays, the stubby is an easy way to tell how old a Canadian movie or TV show is. For instance, we can easily tell that this beloved unfunny Bob and Doug McKenzie sketch was filmed in the 1970s because of the beers.
Did he say
And lastly,
unfunny?
we have this football. Now, this is one of those things that you have probably never noticed before, but once I tell you, you will notice it everywhere. This is a Canadian football. And do you know how we can tell that it's a Canadian football? Because of the white stripes that it has on either end. See, in the American Professional Football League, the NFL, they use balls without stripes. But in the Canadian Football League, or CFL, see, look, you can see it says CFL right here. They use balls with stripes.
For some
It
reason, I
gets a bit
always thought
confusing,
American
though, because in
footballs
American
had
college football,
always
they
had
have
white
balls that
stripes.
have white stripes that only go halfway. What do the stripes mean? Well, I have heard that in the early days, they put the stripes on there so that the ball would be easier to see for audiences. But that also might just be an urban legend. It sure sounds like one. Nowadays, the stripes have just become a symbolic way to separate Canadian football from American football. Canadian football is actually a slightly different game from American football, but I will not bore you with the explanations of how it is different because I don't know. Dry throat. I would like to close this video by asking you for help with something. I would like you to mail me a weird object from your country.
Okay, that was really interesting. Yeah, so I never knew those were like so uniquely Canadian. Again, I guess the Vinegar Bottle isn't. You get that in the UK quite often as well, but all those other ones, yeah, I never seen them before. I never thought about it. So tell me what you think about them. Tell me what you think about his opinions on things like Canadian Tire, Bob and Doug McKenzie as well. Kind of caught me off guard a little bit there, but interesting. Tell me if there's any other uniquely Canadian objects that you think are interesting. Tell me in the comments. Thanks.